There's a lot of layers. Buckle up. I don't want to be famous. I think it's a prison. If you're going to put something out as your actual name, there will be consequences to that. Immediately, you're going to feel like I should just get out of this. I should stop because I only got 10 views, or I only got 10 clicks, or I only got 10 likes. Never lose sight of what you want and who you want to be within the industry. God.
Tell us a little bit more detail about the production company. How do you kind of market that brand in order that you pay the bills every month?
If you're wanting a steady stream of income, then I actually would encourage you to probably...
Where do you think you've succeeded?
If you do something you love, you won't work a day in your life. At the end of the day, a century from now, what's really going to matter? I know I'm not the first to say this. I will not be the last to say this, but
Novo Dé, thank you so much for coming on the Mood podcast. It's great to finally chat with you again.
Thanks for having me, man. Great to be here.
I wanted to start off with something that I think underlines a lot of what you do in the art space, and that's anonymity. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that. But Novo is essentially anonymous to the public, and I want to kind of dive in as to why that is, and what your reasoning and kind of rationale is behind the whole anonymity brand. Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of layers. Buckle up. On the deepest end, I want to push the artwork to the front. I want to give it all the spotlight because I know I'm not the first to say this. I will not be the last to say this, but when we're all fucking dead, like, what is it going to matter what, who I was dating or who I was married to, or, all of that, those cultural components that for some reason we're so obsessed with. And I do not understand for the life of me why, but at the end of the day, a century from now, 500, 1,000 years from now, what's really going to matter? It's the work. When you think of your favorite artists, you don't think about what their favorite food was and shit. You think about, their most famous pieces and things like that. So it was very important to me to make sure that when I got started, I wanted to make sure that the work was the most important part. And from there, obviously, as we get a little more superficial with some of the reasoning behind that is, I don't want to be famous. I think it's a prison. When I look at Taylor Swift and like Mr. Beast or whoever these fucking people are that just like, the idea of fame is a little scary to me, to be honest. So that's why, like, if you ever look at my promotional like headshots and things like that, we have an amazing team at Novo Dé Productions, and we have a graphic design artist. His name is Tom. And I'm always telling Tom, like, can you obscure my face a little, more before I put this out? A little more, where I see other people wanting to be further and further in spotlight. And then another fear of mine is where if you don't do that, especially with how things are today, and like trying to feed this machine and trying to get into these industries and trying to carve out an audience and all of these things, before you know it, you become the product. And you lose sight at the most important part was probably the reason you got into this industry to begin with, which is the art itself, what you wanted to make. And on the furthest, part of the superficiality of it all is I honestly have a boring ass name. And, I've actually met about a half a dozen people with the exact same legal name as me. And I was like, man, if I put my name out there, if I start putting myself out there and it's just my name, I'm already lost in the sea of contents, right? Like am I going to be even more lost? Probably. And I knew that I wanted to connect. A lot of people know me from the writing and things like that to start with, but, Novo Dé Productions and the idea of Novo Dé is not only a person, but a collective, a team of artists too. And we knew that we were going to make a lot of things, after the writing, we have a lot of music in the oven that we want to show and give to the world. And of course, we're going to probably make music videos around that and a bunch of other things. and there'll be this amazing cross-pollination of things. And I know that my legal name would have probably done nothing, but Novo Dé, maybe he can do something. So
tell us a little bit more about, I mean, we're gonna unpack that a little bit more, certainly on the fame thing and the need, or the perceived need to be in the spotlight.
Isn't it a prison? Are you scared of, you're a good looking guy. Are you afraid of that a little bit? Like, come on.
It's interesting as I become more in the spotlight, and we're talking microcosms here, 8 billion people in the world and maybe a few thousand of my audience. It's we've got to put things into perspective. But as that few thousand grows into another few hundred and few thousand, hopefully, I'm definitely more aware of the negative side of it, and the trolls and the people who just like to bring people down. And I consider myself quite a strong person in that respect. One of the things my wife says she always loves about me is I don't give a shit what people say, but I do, especially when it comes to
that is an art itself.
Yeah, well, I don't care about what people think of me as a person, because I am who I am. I have my close friends, and that's all I need in this life. But when they criticize something I'm putting out there that I've put a lot of hard work into, and my passion, my beliefs, and my values, then I start to quit, and then I do that. I'm only human, right? As everyone is, just like Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift. That still will get to them. You could have millions and millions of people who love you, but you could have 5 people that fucking hate you.
But that's what you're signing up for. People. That's what you're signing up for, is the criticism too. So it's inevitable, So
the thing where I don't ever want to get to a point, and is my private life. And I share some things about my private life, whether it's my dogs being sweet, or I generally don't share, like the vlogging side of things. I don't want that. I think that's the line for me. It's like, I'm happy to have a public persona to be my brand, but when it comes to what I do every day and what I talk about in close inner circles, then there is a line there that I don't really want to jump over. But
same here. That's where Novo Dé was born as well.
Yeah. What I like about you is you're also trying to kind of offer some value to people who want to get into these spaces, into the art space.
Absolutely.
Feel like they need to have a public persona. So, talk to us a little bit about that, and why you think that that's maybe not needed. If you're just starting out and you're a little bit shy and you don't really know where to go, and do I need to put all this effort into, like, this is me on Instagram kind of thing? Can you give us a little bit more insights as to how you've kind of guided people through that?
Absolutely. I mean, intention, like we talked about this on our show, the show we did with Art of the Beholder, is it's all about intention. So I feel like not enough people give a lot of thought to making sure, especially in the world we live in now, where every single text message, email, video, like everything is very permanent. There's a permanence to that. And if you don't think about the long game, I'm afraid you may not want to even think about the game at all. Because a lot of people, I think there's a big difference between the creators that want to just be, famous overnight or make a ton of money or what have you. For myself and my team, I know we want to, we want to be in this game for the long haul. And part of that is playing the long game. So knowing that these things are always going to be changing, always evolving, always reshaping, not only who we are as artists, but also the culture as we shape it. I urge people to always think about those consequences, because if you're going to put something out as your actual name, there will be consequences to that. And you have to think about, as much as we've talked about this as well before, is the audience is often last when I'm making pieces, but the audience is nonetheless important. Even though they're last, they're on the list. So you have to, there has to be a branding element. You have to play a little bit of the game, but you can never lose sight of your vision, because once you start feeding this machine, eventually you become a part of it, and the things you use can end up using you. And that's why I always, I have colleagues and friends that, they're musicians or they're doing different things, and they're like, well, no one is buying my stuff unless I'm making this reaction video or this tutorial video. And there's nothing wrong with that, for the record. Nothing wrong with that, for the record, at all, if that's your game. If you want to have a hybrid approach to this, totally. But I notice, like, I may lose touch with them. I may regain touch with them after a year, and then that's all they're doing. And I'll ask them, like, well, that started to become successful. And I was like, what happened to the music? And it's like, I don't have time for that. I'm making videos, and I'm making all these things that are actually accumulating the views and getting the revenue and the income. And that takes over. And don't get me wrong, I felt like I may be insulting an entire generation of artists or people in this industry that have an intention to do that from the beginning, like the Mr. Beasts of the world. That's fine. Just never lose sight of what you want and who you want to be within the industry. And I knew that if I started doing it a completely different way, that I would lose touch myself. I knew I would, because I get this from my management all the time. It's like, why don't you, do more videos, Art of the Beholder videos, showing your face and stuff like that. And, doing these kind of video shows and things like that. It's like, well, I can't control, I can't control how my guests, like, video footages and their audio, and there's a lot of things, like, is everyone dressing up? I'm a little old school, where I would want, in a perfect world, I would want, if I could have a show like that, I would want it to be like, in the States, like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where I was actually dressing up every night, having a guest where they were mic'd on their lapel, and not having to do that. I'm actually so glad this worked out, because I've never used Podcastle, for the record. And I was afraid I was going to have to do, like, the big headphones and the mic in front of my face, because that, that's even a look. Remember, that's a creative look. People, like, I feel like they lose touch with things like that, because they see it so much, they take it for granted. So that's just to bring the conversation around circle, is you can't take it for granted. What you do matters, and the intention goes a long way. And so really think about the future that you're going to try to fulfill.
I feel bad now having this microphone in the shot.
Get out of here, Matt. Jesus Christ.
Let's jump into that while we talk about it. The Art of the Beholder podcast, which I was privileged to be a guest on a few months ago. Tell us what that's about, how you format it, what the intent is behind it, and give us an idea of how that's going and what the kind of the intent behind it is.
Absolutely. So we knew that the things we wanted to create as a team, we wanted to, Novo Dé Productions has always been a multimedia venture. And we knew that, I can never put myself in a box, and it's a blessing and a curse. And I knew that, like, I wanted to, the original flagship, kind of products and art we were wanting to make was actually music. And any musicians out there listening can relate to the fact that it takes just an incredible amount of resources, software, instruments, production equipment, recording equipment, you name it, to get to a final product that's nice, because we like nice polished stuff as well. And I realized that I wanted to nurture other areas until I could build a home studio and things like that. But regardless, we knew that the products were going to probably be, like, we were only going to be in the conversation maybe once every 3 or 4 years, especially like writing novels. It takes about 5 years to really put out a novel from beginning to end. We knew that we wanted to be in the conversation. So Art of the Beholder was born to not only market and kind of help with the branding as well, but be in the conversation. It was so important to talk about the things we love. And that was really the soul of the show. Was originally based on, I had been having conversations like the ones we have on the show for decades with my closest friends. And we were like, why don't we just record ourselves doing this? And I wrote a format around it, and obviously the intros and outros, all the little things to actually give it a polished show format. And a lot of it is, the rest, as they say, is history, and the things we like to cover include both, deep cut things, but also pop culture things in all forms of art. We cover a lot of music, but we didn't want to put ourselves in a box, much like the products we knew we were going to make. And because we wanted to talk the entire community. We wanted to talk about film and literature and music and all these different things. And that gave us these amazing opportunities and connections with so many other people like yourself to have conversations about things we never even thought in a million years we could have, especially with people across the world, like in Bali, like in your case. And that helps us, cultivate that audience that we're all trying to create and carve out just a space. I think the more I get to know artists and things like that, most of us don't give a shit about being, millionaires and billionaires and the Taylor Swifts of the world, so famous that you can't even go to the grocery store without someone mobbing you for selfies and shit. So, we just want a space. We want community. We want an audience. And they may hate the stuff. I joke about that all the time. I'm like, you read my first novel and I'm pretty sure you're going to hate it with a fiery passion. And that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be challenging sometimes. And then, so Art of the Beholder ultimately is the connective tissue to all of that. I always wanted a live stream because we knew that, yes, we were going to make all these different kinds of things. Even, much to your world, we dabbled in a little photography as well. Not as good as your stuff, but we like to jump in and try different things. And because we just want to make things, that feeling of just like making things and trying to make the world a better place. And I knew that something like Art of the Beholder, just a podcast show, to always be in the conversation would be that connective tissue to all of it.
How do we make the world a better place?
How do we make the world a better place? God, if one person at a time, man. There's no easy answer to that. A better place is subjective. Your better place is different from mine. My better place is different from yours. I think trying to just this is where it's funny that you bring this up. I always joke about this with my friends or on different podcasts of like the most hippie thing about me. I know I don't look it, but like mentally, the most hippie thing about me is I actually don't believe in the concept of war. I don't know why we have to have war. No other species does this. I come from a scientific background before I got into the arts, or I've always been in the arts, but before I got into it seriously and wanted to pursue some more practical careers outside of the arts, I had a lot of my undergraduate degrees in the sciences. So I've been studying those kind of things for millennia. And I can tell you, yes, it's art and music and math that separates us from the animals. But man, the animals are sometimes so much better and so much more right than us, probably like your dogs. You probably see that in the animals that are surround you, things like that. So, because I actually am writing a piece right now called Twist Ending Life. And I have a whole scene that talks about the fact that dogs have figured it out. Dogs know life better than us. Absolutely. The smallest things make them happy. All they need is very little, and they're so excited to see you every day. So how do we make the world a better place? I mean, keep chipping away, keep striving to be better. It's never going to be perfect, but if we strive to be better, maybe we'll get there one day.
Yeah, I think there are a few common themes that we could probably all agree on that we need to either eradicate or diminish in terms of human suffering, animal suffering. Yeah, I think, we've got 4 dogs and I wish I could have 10.
4 dogs?
I never understand. I've got one right here. I don't understand. We're animal lovers, and I never quite, there's one thing I can never understand in the world is why we have to be, we being the proverbial we. I mean, it varies according to what culture you go into and which country you're in, of course, but I don't know why we have to be so cruel to animals. I get that there's a food chain. I get that, we don't have to, but we do kill animals to eat. I don't know why we have to torture animals. I don't know why we have to make them suffer. I don't know why. Yeah, but that's it.
I couldn't agree more.
Separate conversation. But yeah, animals will last. Well, hopefully, will last way beyond us. I think that's probably the most nihilistic way to answer that question on my side is just to get rid of humans, and then the world is going to be a better place.
Well, AI is getting better every day, so you may get your wish, Matt. Don't.
My God, have you seen ChatGPT 4.0? Did you see that?
I'm thinking about signing up for it. I'm a little scared too.
As a writer, how is AI? I was going to leave this to later, but since we've mentioned it, as an artist, as a writer, as a photographer, as a producer, but for you, Novo Dé Productions, how is AI? How is the future looking with the encroaching influence of AI? And we mean we're a matter of years before we just don't have to do anything. We don't have to. We will want to because we're humans. We're creatives. We want to have that influence on the world and express ourselves. But right now, how is AI integrated and how is it affecting your productions?
Well, we do. I would be lying if I said I didn't use it at all. We absolutely use it, but we have a very hard policy of using it only as a tool and never as a crutch. I will never, ever have AI let me or AI write an entire novel for me or something like that. No. I don't think right now we're still in the infancy of it. I actually listen to a lot of other podcasts and a lot of other documentaries that talk about this a lot. As much as what's his name, Sam Altman or whatever of OpenAI is saying that we're like right around the corner for having this kind of AI we see in movies. I know Scarlett Johansson's voice was, hijacked for their new chat GPT, voice communication. And thank God she just like put the brakes on that. And I think she's probably going to litigate it, things like that. But when we're writing, marketing is a full-time job that I do not want to sign up for. Thank God there's people in the world that want to just do that side of the business. But like when we need to do hashtags and market things, and like I'll have, Chat GPT write those, things like that. I always write my own synopses and things like that for the shows. But if it's just like a hashtag or if it's just a ad for, check this out, with this kind of subject, I think there's nothing wrong with things like that. You just can't let it take it. It was kind of to my point of talking about the intention earlier. You can't let it take over or we'll never carve out these spaces we want in our communities. And I mean, but yes, use it as a tool, not as a crutch. And I mean, I am an existentialist. Life is short. There's maybe a little nihilism in there, but more cynicism. But I know that it will get to the point that it is so good that it can write novels probably better than most of us and things like that. So I would be lying if I said there was not some sort of existential dread to the communities, to the markets, things like that. And that's why we're starting to see it now. We're starting to see the pushback. We saw it with the SAG-AFTRA strikes. We're seeing it right now with, I just mentioned Scarlett Johansson probably going to sue OpenAI's ass. We're seeing pushback, and I think we'll eventually get there where we're telling all of these different governments, like you guys in the UK, us in the States, all over the world, that we need to litigate this. We need to put guardrails on this, because the box is open. Pandora's box is open. We will never, ever, ever go back. I feel like that's the scariest part, guys, is we will never go back. It will be that existential dread will be there forever. So if we don't learn and really push for change and an adaptation of how to live with these worlds, we are going to always suffer the consequences.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think we have to fight it too. I think you talked about the solution there. I think it's the litigation, it's the regulation. And talking as a photographer, talking as a writer, talking as a both podcast hosts, like we need to have a system that authenticates whatever we put out there, right? And I think it's coming, just trying to kind of tap into what's going on in terms of the regulating bodies. But the quicker that comes, the better. And then we can have, certainly in the art world, we can have the coexistence of both. It doesn't have to be a war. It doesn't have to be a fight. It's not AI or human, right? It's we both live alongside each other, and one uses the other.
We can both have a space, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is your space at the moment in terms of, tell us a little bit more detail about the production company, why people come to you, how you kind of make a business out of it. And, certainly with the multimedia kind of verticals that go through Novo Dé Productions, how do you focus on any one at any time. I mean, my constant worry is not worry, but my constant battle is I want to do this and I want to do this. And as creatives, we have ideas. And like you said, I just want to make stuff all the time, but I can't make something really well without giving it my full attention. And then I've got this and this, and you're trying to juggle so many things. With Novo Dé Productions, you have a wide array of productions. Tell us how you kind of manage that, and any advice to people who are wanting to do different things at the same time.
I cannot, the ability to harness work ethic is, I think, I cannot, I cannot stress that enough, is to hone that part of your personality in as best as you can, first and foremost, because I think when people want to do a lot of different things, the scope alone is intimidating. And a lot of people don't even, I have other colleagues and contemporaries that don't even get off the ground because they have some version of writer's block. The scope is so big that they get intimidated by it. And I want to premise this by saying work ethic is so important because there is endless amount of talent out there, and in the sea of content what we have right now, way too much, in my opinion. We're adding to it right now. Joking, of course. But we have the opportunity to see so much talent and so much, different kinds of talent and passion that we never saw before, because anybody can put themselves on YouTube and things like that. But the ability to have the work ethic to make sure that you continue to keep going, because I will assure you, anybody listening, as soon as you start, you're going to get something I consider worse than failure, and that is nothingness. You're going to get crickets. No one is going to give a shit about your work or what you put out. And you could have put your heart, soul, it could be the most polished thing on the planet, but because I don't like to use the word competition, because as artists, it's not a competition. It's not a fucking competition. We're all on the same side. We're all trying to put, beauty into the world and change it for the better. So that answers the other question again, beauty. But you're going to feel like I should just get out of this. I should stop because I only got 10 views, or I only got 10 clicks, or I only got 10 likes, and no one likes this. No one's buying the thing. Well, of course not. You have to build these worlds. You have to cultivate an audience, and it takes forever. I'm still working at it to this day. So yeah, I'm still working on it to this day, and I'm still looking for ways to take things to the next level, and I do. And so you have to believe in what you're doing, stay true to your vision, be flexible, be organized, and most importantly, my God, when you're dealing with artists, you have to be patient. People have to find their muse. People have difficulties with scheduling. You can call whatever we're doing, it's semantics, right? It can be the arts, it can be media, it can be entertainment, you can call it show business. It doesn't matter. But whatever you decide to go into, there will be an inevitable point where you come to a crossroads. And if you're not getting the attention that you want, you think that your initial thing is to give up. And so I urge everyone listening, don't give up. Keep going. You don't know what's going to land. You don't know. And here's the thing about art. I talk about this all the time. Art is time sensitive. People don't get a lot of the really challenging things right away. It takes 10, 20, 30 years. And that's the thing about people today. They don't want to wait that long. They don't want to play the long game. But I urge you to play that long game if you really want to kind of get into these worlds. Because it's not going to be, the 0.0001 of success overnight is so rare. It's not going to happen. But if you have that work ethic and then you have that organization, you are flexible, you are patient, and you're most importantly true to your vision, you will get, if you will get somewhere. It may not be exactly what you have upstairs, because everyone, when they're young, you always kind of want the same thing. But as you get older and you realize, especially when you keep going after you get the crickets. I remember the first time I put myself out there, and it was a nothingness. I got nothing in return, and then I did have that talk with myself. I did have that soul searching moment, but I wanted to keep going. And I think that will tell you who you are. If you keep going, then you're probably an artist. If you want either fame overnight or something like that, maybe think about some other careers. So that's what I would tell a lot of people starting out and wanting to do a lot of different things, because for the record, there's nothing. I actually wish I was a master of something and not a jack. I wish I could just pick one thing and be like, okay, this is it. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I just don't have that in my DNA. It's not a part of me. And I know there's a lot of people listening that will probably be like, well, I'm a musician. I just want to be a musician for the rest of my life, or I'm a painter, or I'm a photographer. And that's great. Fucking embrace that. But, if you're, for the other people out there that are like me, you really have to buckle down and sometimes just do it. It is work at the end of the day, but if you do something you love, you won't work a day in your life. That kind of feeling.
I think it's easy for people to get sucked into a different form of rat race, right? Certainly in the public creative world, it's easy to think, well, why is it not working? And I've been doing it for like a month. Like it's certainly with the, and I don't want to be ageist here, but certainly with the younger generation who have been brought up with instant gratification, the society of instant gratification. So they think, well, if it's not working now, why it's never going to work? Move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing. So that patience to be consistent and consistently patient, I think it's absolutely vital to build something and build a legacy. And you mentioned legacy earlier. What is your long-term goal? Is that your long-term goal, to build something that you can look back on, once you're in the ground or whatever you believe in after you die? What is that you're working towards? And is that something that's always something you're working towards?
Yes, legacy and the idea of immortality is, for some reason, very important to me. It's definitely a driving force that I could make something that could land myself in the history books forever. Because yes, I am, I don't mind talking about a little bit of that stuff. I am not very religious, and I think, and I'm also of the camp that life is very short, and we don't know the future. We only have one shot at this. And if you're not doing the things you love or want to do, it's so challenging for me to relate to people like that sometimes, because yes, I would love to make something that, because when I pass, I think that's it, that there is no reincarnation, there's no afterlife, there's a nothingness to that. But there's not a nothingness to memories. There's not a nothingness to history. And I think we forget that. As much as traditional arts, it's easy to think about, man, I want to be in the books like the greats and things like that. But everybody, in my opinion, much to, someone like Rick Rubin's mentality on this, I think we're all kind of artists, even if you don't go into a traditional art career. And, for the people that are probably making the tech right now, or changing the laws, or, like, everyone wants to strive for greatness. And where you place yourself in those timelines depends on you and what you want to do. I would love to make the next great song or the next great thing. And again, that's subjective. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too, though. In a weird way, that's the crossroads I got to. If it never actually happens, that's okay. I gave it the best damn try I could, and now I have no regrets. And I think, to me, that's enough.
How do you then balance? I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not a religious guy, and I think once I die, and it's like a sleep that I don't wake up from. And so I don't know whether that's a blessing or a curse. I mean, everyone's different, and it's how you perceive that.
It's both. It's dualistic.
If you're thinking, I get some criticism of how I want to build a legacy, which I think is really important. A lot of people build their own legacies like outside of the art. It's not just exclusive to the art world, right? People have children for that reason, whether they agree to that or not. So I want to leave something behind, and it's difficult. How do you stay present and engaged in the moment on whatever you're working on, to be at that time present in the moment as Novo Dé, but also be thinking, as you do, long-termist and wanting to build this greater body of work?
Well, this is probably me just being me. I've always been a walking oxymoron of a lot of different things. A lot of ideas kind of live in my mind for years, sometimes decades. So part of the reason that I really started to put myself out there seriously about 5 years ago officially, but taking what I was doing very, very seriously about 10 years ago. But I was sort of sitting on decades of ideas. And so knowing that I wanted to try to achieve as much as I could, I actually stemmed it, all right? I based it off of what I call the Holy Trinity. No pun intended. I'm not religious, but I call it the Holy Trinity of pop culture, which is literature, film, and music. I knew I wanted to do something in at least one thing in each of those worlds before I passed personally. Even if it wasn't that great or not a lot of people saw it, I just wanted to do it for me. And so I had a lot of these ideas already brewing in my mind for years. And then I finally was like, well, it's time to do it. So I started to do it. And I think that's what is going to separate a lot of people is actually sitting down and having that organization to map out a lot of the plans and ideas because people ask me, oh, well, you must have like a 5-year plan. I have a 20-year plan. I have a 30-year plan. Like I'm playing such the long game that I try to be 10 steps ahead of everything and any idea whenever I can. It's impossible to see the future, of course, but just having an idea of how I want to structure these things and being organized enough, because I come from a lot of different worlds and realms and career paths. I cultivated kind of like that type A personality when it came to schedules and organization. And I cannot tell you how many spreadsheets I have for the stuff that I'm working on. Like it's almost gross, like how many I have. It's disgusting, Matt. But that's what it takes, That's what it takes, man, is tapping into those artistic sides, but also having that business side in your brain of being like, okay, well, I'm my own boss. I don't have schedules. I don't have deadlines, from someone above me, but I need to create them. I give myself deadlines all the time. Luckily, I have a management team, and we have an annual, an annual meeting for the whole year. We map out the entire year, pretty beat by beat. We don't always meet those deadlines. Sometimes it's impossible to meet deadlines because you're working with a lot of other people. Like just last year, I finished my second audiobook. Only got to produce it. I didn't get to direct it like the first one, but it's only a 2-hour audiobook. 2 hours, right? Shouldn't take that long. It took over a year to produce. So it was already written. So I had to adapt it, produce it, find talent, and a wonderful actress that we got. We actually auditioned somebody else, didn't work out. That's a good example of like, oh, well, she's not quite playing the part, nailing the part that I had in my head. So we had to go through the audition process again. That's what prolonged a lot of these things. And just a 2-hour podcast took over a year to make. And so you have to go into it knowing that, not only being organized and being a little type A. If you're going to channel any of that type A-ness in your mind, channel its organization, where the rest of it can be for creativity and muse and spark and let's try something no one has ever tried in their whole GD life, right? Kind of thing, that feeling, that passion. But you have to have that other side of your brain, or let me tell you, hire people. Like if you don't have that business type A, having to schedule shit, hire people, because and I know that can be hard because not everyone is working with budgets like big studio budgets. I know I'm not, so I have to really pick my battles from the income we get from sponsors and things like that, and it definitely comes down to that you have to not lose touch with your goals, but how to frame your goals annually, and then put them into 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and so on until you meet them. So it is, I guess, to just to put a point on it, it is a marathon. Like as soon as a hurdle comes, jump over that hurdle and get to the next one, And yes, it may take a year to make a 2-hour audiobook that should have been made in like a weekend, but you'll be happy. You'll be happy you got to that finish line.
Yeah, I resonate with that process. I've just filmed an online course, and actually I filmed it beginning of the year. I wrote it end of last year, the scripts and just an idea of the structure and how I'm going to produce this. Filmed it at the beginning of the year, then have gone through, I think, 4 different video editors because, they just let me down, or they found it too difficult, or they're above my budget, or whatever. And we're still editing the 4th module out of 12, and we're, halfway through the year. It'll be a
nice,
year,
man. Yeah.
By the time
it's a marathon,
I have it ready to go. So I mean, it is a marathon, and that comes, I think, with a little bit of experience, just having those impatient moments going, oh yeah, actually, okay, this is, if this is meaningful, then happy to take the time on it. But I think your point about organization is I'll go one step further and talk about systems. Like if you're able to, whether that's with a team, if you can afford a team, but have some systems in place that can offload as much of that, the admin or the organization, or just a place where you can pop ideas and come back to later, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you've got that in your little ecosystem, I think that can really help with the organization, and therefore you can keep one eye on the long-term process, long-term goals, but also, focus on the here and now and be present without losing sight of that. Where is the kind of, I'm going to ask you to give us some of your 20-year plans in a minute, but where in those lines have you think, and in your kind of multifaceted production company, where do you think you've succeeded, and where do you kind of gravitate to most?
I really love Art of the Beholder. I mean, I think we still have a long way to go. Yeah, the podcast Art of the Beholder. I think we still have a long way to go, but even that, it was, we dropped, I think I mentioned this, but if I didn't, the original title was like Art of the Beholder with Novo and Buck. Like our names were going to be in the title because it was going to be like a 90s, radio kind of show where we had the same 2 people every single show. And obviously didn't work out. It turned into more of a traditional talk show. Which I love too. I love acting as well, and being able to kind of play the character version of Novo Dé. That's definitely not kind of me per se, but it's so I'm glad we dropped it, because even that, I know I want to pass the baton on. I want to have other people host, and eventually it will have a different host when I go off to do other things. But I wanted to keep going. I wanted to get to that point where it's still going, kind of like Wisecrack and stuff like that, where then if I wanted to come back or be a guest, I could always come back, so that live stream is always there, that connective tissue to everything else. And to answer, I think, the other question, so yeah, the first decade was mostly like writing. And because of that, like I mentioned, kind of I was talking about musicians and stuff, it just takes so many resources to make even one song. So I knew I had to buy equipment and make a home studio in tiny little chunks, but I still wanted to nurture that that side of me I really had an itch. And I had to nurture those sides or I'd go crazy, kind of thing. So I did it, since the music was originally going to be the flagship, I got the bug from like writing lyrics and poems and things like that. And then I was like, oh, well, I should just keep doing this until I have enough equipment to make music. Now I have that. So we're about a decade into the kind of the writing phase of Novo Dé Productions. And the next 10 will be definitely music. And then probably the last 10 after that is I definitely want to do more video content, stills. Not content. I kind of hate that word sometimes. I want to make a short film, probably from one of my short stories or something like that. Or I'm developing a screenplay for a feature that one I would pass off to, but it's in my head right now, and I just got to will it into existence. But yeah, that's kind of just to have, like I said, the holy trinity of pop culture art is literature, music, and film. And so I knew that every 10 years there's going to be probably something like that. And the beauty of it is it has spawned other things that I didn't know that I would have liked. Like I designed all of the art covers for my books, and I didn't think that I would kind of fall in love with design that way. I thought I would just like hand it off to outsource it. Like, here's my idea, now do it. Or not even that. Just like, here's the book. Read the synopsis and make a cover for it. I don't care. But when I would finish this stuff, I would say, I think I know exactly in my head what I want to make for that cover. And I've always been absolutely obsessed with surrealism and the movement that is surrealism. So everything I make in terms of just like visual, like artistic content, so cover art, promotion, things like that, it'll always have like a hint of surrealism in it. And even our logos, has a little jellyfish flying through it, things like that. And just like hints of it a little bit everywhere. It's almost like Easter eggs that you have to look for sometimes. But it is, it kind of, that's how I break it down. To your point with systems, is I'm kind of breaking all those worlds into 10-year gaps, and then all the things that come with it. Like, I know, like, if I write music, I probably would like to have like a music video and probably outsource that. So probably may write that and maybe even help film it, maybe even help edit it. Like, so all these other pursuits have turned into new routes that have taken shape. And I kind of to the curse of me wanting to do so many different things. I never said I was amazing at all of them, for the record too. I just enjoy doing all of them. I just love doing so much that I can't stop. It's like an addiction. But it definitely turns into like, oh, well, I want to try that now. And I want to try that now. I wish I could be master, but I'm still a jack. Before we move on, we moved on from the AI conversation, but I couldn't help but think, this is the interviewer, me as a photographer. Does that scare your community? Like, right now it's very crude, Dolly and all the other stuff, but eventually it's going to get to that point where it's going to be so good that we cannot tell a difference. Right now we can tell a huge difference, right? Like every what was it, Late Night with the Devil, like them just like putting things in the background of the movie, and the whole like X, Twitter, Instagram verse like lit on fire, like you're using AI, it's an AI image. Like, people just have this like super keen eye for this. And I think as a photographer, I assume you do as well, but I assume that your entire community is a little scared with this idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, most people are morons, right? Most people are stupid and uneducated. And I think if you're able to educate yourself and inform yourself and find out about, and just think back, like certainly in the photography world, and I'm just speaking for photography now, but it probably spills over into what you're talking about with movies and video, filmmaking and video. I mean, we've been using AI for years and years, ever since the concept of the digital camera came about 2000-ish. We're talking over 20 years ago. We've been using AI, and ever since the computer was invented.
But there was no fear of being replaced, right? There was no fear of being replaced by the AI capabilities.
I think there is there's always been an existential threat, whatever technology or whatever revolution has come about in human existence over the last 200-300 years. There's always something that we think will threaten our existence as humans. AI just being another one, maybe not our existence, maybe our existence, depending on AGI and how you see that moving forward. But specifically talking about photography, look, we use Photoshop, we use Lightroom, we have done for decades. That's AI. I think where people are getting scared is they're just a little bit ignorant. And, you know, when ChatGPT and when these large language models came about, suddenly AI was in the headlines, right? Oh, fuck, we got to think about AI.
Yeah.
Then Midjourney came about and DALL-E and all these image generations. Like, oh yeah, well, you know, we've been changing shit in Photoshop and in post-production in movies and images for fucking years. This is just the next level, right? So where and going back to what I talked about earlier with the regulations and the legislation around these kind of things, or even just authentication, right? Instagram now has, when you put a post on, you have to click a little box as to whether it's AI generated or not, which is a start. It's nowhere near the solution that we need. But if anything, in my opinion, and I've talked to some really big photographers around who kind of echo this point, is that it will make real photography more valuable. Yes, certain parts of the industry will probably be replaced. I'm thinking product photography, food photography, still life photography, maybe some advertisement for commercial, kind of big commercial brand photography. But, you know, real kind of photography as a fine art form, it will never be replaced, because people will always want that human, you know, it's like music, right? It's not going to replace music. It's going to live alongside it. But if we have an authentication system where you can see a song generated by a human, albeit using technology and using AI and whatever software they might use, and compare it to something that clearly is marked AI generated or whatever it might be. The same with photography. It's like people will find the real human generated images more interesting, more valuable, and they might look exactly the same, but knowing one is being created by a human will add the value. So I'm not too worried about it. Yes, we have to, like you said earlier, use it. We have to utilize it. We have to work alongside it. Certainly in the business and the system side of things. But you know, personally, I'm not too worried about it. Photography will always be around, whether it be a huge part of society. I don't know. I don't really care. There will always be people wanting to take photos, and if that's always around, then photography will always be around. And the value of good photography, you know, this is the other side of it. Maybe it will help us get rid of the fucking shit that's out there. Maybe it will help. Maybe it will kind of make new photographers who may not have it, you know, in their desires,
like step their game up.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that will allow us to just kind of balance the playing field a little bit more. I don't know. But yeah, personally speaking, to answer your question, I'm the more experienced photographers out there, and the people who are kind of maybe not cemented in the space, but have a business surrounding their photography passion, they're not too worried about it. They, you know, it's something they have to keep an eye on, of course. And like I said, use and make sure they're keeping up with the pace, so they're not left behind. But in terms of replacing photography, there will be some sectors of the industry that will be replaced in time. But generally speaking, I don't see it.
Gotcha. Okay.
What does your business model look like? You know, I don't want to like dive into specifics, and you know, there is a sense of anonymity, of course, about everything that you do. But give us an idea, certainly for people watching who kind of love your work, or at least want to emulate a lot of the way you carry your brand. How do you bring that into a business sense, and how do you kind of market that brand in order that you pay the bills every month?
The models are, it's challenging because our models are based on the products, you know. So if you're wanting a steady stream of income and you're wanting to pay the bills, then I actually would encourage you to probably, like, right away, that is, you probably would want to play a little more of the game a little sooner. I'm not saying you got to do like dance videos or something like that. I'm just saying that
give me an example though
of a dance video, or what do you mean?
No. Give me an example of playing the game in order to kind of get a more consistent stream.
Oh, playing the game, and again, no disrespect, that people do this because there's a lot of intention of wanting to create a lot of business revenue from this alone. But yeah, much to your point of our attention spans are getting less and less and less. So you're always going to get the numbers based on the lowest amount of content, or like not the lowest, but like the shortest amount of content. And the most entertaining at the same time. You'll probably have to really experiment. And there's luckily between the AI, our conversation about the AI, there's so many metrics dedicated to this. So we can look at the metrics and see what is working, what is not working. And it's hard to tap into those worlds because again, there's already a million other people that are doing this. So if you can figure out a way to stand apart, but it's challenging because standing apart will also mean that you're not going to get as much right away. It definitely took us years and years and years to start getting even a little bit of income from these things. And I think that's intimidating, kind of going back to that point of like, people want that instant success. They want to be a sensation overnight. They want to have the hit. Again, I guarantee it won't happen that way. But if you're wanting to dive into the deep end, then yes, the shortest amount of content, the most entertaining, the things that people will get almost a little addicted to, and like the people that are really good at this, again, are the Mr. Beasts of the world. But then you become kind of a slave to that though too. So if you want to dive into those worlds, and if you want to pay the bills from these things, then you almost have to do that. You have to do the content that definitely sells, and make sure that, even down to the smallest metrics, like you'll get more things, like you will get more clicks, you will get more views if your face is in the thumbnail, if your mouth is slightly open. Like people they take for granted, but like go to your YouTube page or whatever and start to notice these patterns. That like, oh man, the people with like 500,000 views and 1 million views are doing a lot of the same things. And if you want to be a part of those business models, more power to you. I knew that we personally didn't, so we just, our focus is always on the product, whatever kind of artistic output or expression that we're making. And for us, it's volume, and it's long-term kind of building of things that are interconnected. Almost everything is interconnected with the things I make, even the novels, like cross-pollination between characters and things like that. And I'll even have music that way. So I don't recommend that for everyone. That's not for everyone, the long game. But if you're wanting to jump into models that can get those clicks and all those things, because then you'll get. So here's the thing. So like if it's YouTube, for example, you're going to get revenue. I think the metric now is like you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, and you have to have a certain number of views per video. But then you'll get a cut of all that, and then you can sell merch from that, as well as so you're selling merch from that, and then other products along the way. And then also, the people, for like the dance video kind of population out there, if you get enough, people will contact you, much like some of our sponsors, to just talk about it on the show, or wear the clothing in the video, where it's like, because the best kind of marketing, and probably where you actually get paid for it pretty consistently, is also consistently invisible, where you don't really realize you're being marketed to. But we're kind of rebels a little bit in that way. We don't want to always play by their rules. So
fascinating. One thing you talked about in terms of playing the game and trying to understand that there is a business behind anything that we want to do full time, right? We've all got to pay the bills unless we're extremely privileged, extremely lucky. We've got to sacrifice some of that artistic integrity. You talk in some of your copy about provocative art. Is that a specific strategy that you think will help you get a little bit more exposure, or is that just your innate natural way of wanting to express yourself?
Short answer is both, honestly. I think I really like to very opinionated. A lot of the stories I craft are not family friendly at all. Very challenging, very taboo sometimes. But they're still stories. They're still fiction. We have a team of beta readers, and even my mom is in that group, believe it or not. And like adulteration is about my second outing is a novella called Adulteration that's about a porn star, like a woman that's like trying to make it in an adult entertainment business. And even my mom was like, I kind of understand her motivations, which is such an interesting conversation to have with your family. So both, I enjoy, because I think some of the best characters are the most complex ones, very three-dimensional. You can't really put them in a box. And so I know because of like society, the adult entertainment industry is like automatically taboo. Like, oh, she's broken. That's why she got into that industry, and not necessarily. I've seen the weirdest documentaries and like interviews with a lot of people in that world, and they just treat it like a job. They treat it like doing a podcast, or signing up to make a book or to be a photographer. They just treat it like a job, like a plumber kind of job. Like they're just going to work. They're a mailman. That's how they talk about it.
There's probably a plumber character in their video at some point.
That is true. Touche. But yeah, to answer your question, it's both. I do know that stuff is probably going to make a splash with readers more. It's going to be more fun. It's going to be more entertaining. But I also do like I like playing. I like challenging readers. I like challenging just people with all. I like challenging people with kind of all the stuff I make. And that's why I expect the criticism. You have to kind of, this is a weird romantic way to put it. You have to fall in love with the hate a little bit. You have to be okay with it. You have to come to peace with it. It's both.
Is that maybe a reason you like anonymity? Is kind of a barrier to that hate?
No, between wanting to put the art to the spotlight, the art first, not being crazy about being super famous. And then to your point, I don't think I talked about this, but like I want to have a little bit of divide, keep my private life private, protect my family, because they're not putting themselves out there, and they don't need any, X, Instagram, Twitter hate for, stuff like, the stuff I make. And so I want to be protective of that. But it's like, I've been asked this before, and deep down, I think it's more of just an artistic expression, because there could be a little bit of that, but it's like asking, Sia why she covers up her face, or Daft Punk why they decided to wear the machine outfits, the robot outfits, like, or were they trying to hide something? I feel like you can almost kind of spin that with anything. Like, Matt, why'd you move to Bali? What are you hiding from in the UK, kind of thing? Like it. You could do that with anything, and I don't know. I personally, I don't think I'm trying to hide under the shield of the branding.
How do you see that moving forward? You mentioned the kind of dirty word that is content, and I'm with you on that. I think we've made this word content into something that we don't really like, and content can be anything, right? But how do you see the evolution of creativity and art moving forward, and where do you think you're gonna? I know you have a long-term plan, but where do you think you're gonna fit into that evolution or devolution? How you see it?
Ask the question again. Maybe I didn't quite understand it.
With the evolution of creativity and art as we might see it or perceive it moving forwards, where do you kind of see the space? And we touched on social media a little bit, we've touched on the world and society of instant gratification. Where do you see your business model and your creativity fitting into that evolution or devolution, as you might perceive it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. It may be the hugest thing on the planet in 30 years. It may be another drop in the. It may still just stay a needle in the haystack. I don't know. I'm apathetic, I think, to that idea. I still, all of not contemporaries, probably more like inspirations, people I look up to, like David Lynch and Leonard Cohen and stuff, had all these. They didn't put anything on a model. They just kind of made stuff and acquired an audience. And a lot of their stuff, I will admit, is so challenging. Like, there's a lot of artists I love, and I'm like, I do not get this at all. Like, could someone explain this to me? Like, this is weird for even me. And I love weird stuff. I love avant-garde. I love. Give me some strange any day. Give me eclectic any day. But there are lines where I'm like, I don't understand this, and I don't think I'm meant to. I realize, like, that's the whole point of it. And so to a question like that, I probably would, turn it around on you and say, like, does it truly matter? I mean, I think it depends on, like, yes, if this is your only source of income and you gotta, like, adapt to every tiny little thing that changes, then I can maybe kind of relate or kind of see it, but but then you have to ask yourself where the integrity is, and if it stops being the things you want to make, then I feel like I don't know. I would have a hard time connecting with that still if it was just the thing that I thought would be an adaptation for what the people are always wanting. Because and I know how that sounds. I know that comes, like, I'm this pretentious artist, type. I'm not. I'm not trying to be, but I know how that sounds. And just to refute kind of that idea of something like that, it does come back to the fact that it probably shouldn't matter, but it's tough. I get where you're trying to get at. That you still got to play the game a little bit. You still got to play ball. And I think I will always do that to an extent, but I will always make a line and make my manager just so upset. Because, yeah, I mean, I just I don't care enough. It's apathy. I'm going to do me. I've always been happy being me. And if that had to change one day, I probably would just retire.
I think the question stems really from the fear of being left behind, and at the bottom of all of this is money. People want money and status, and they kind of get conflated. But people need to live, and they want to do something they want to do. But when the society and the industry moves faster than they can adapt, they fear about getting left behind. And I'm with you. Like, I want to enjoy the process. I want to always do something I want to do. And I think that's good, because I'm kind of more of a jack of all trades as well. I'm master of none. And I think that having as diverse interests and idea generation and business model as you can allows you to adapt a little bit more and go with the flow or not go with the flow. Or is this something that I can ride a wave with or not? So I think, as the artist and as art moves forward or moves sideways, or however we want to see it, I don't want anything to get diluted. I think I agree with you on that, is to maintain that. I worry personally, and the reason why I asked that question is I worry personally that, and I did a video on this, about the integrity of artists and being kind of washed over and spilling over into the content creation kind of world. And there is not necessarily one or the other. Certainly as a writer and a musician, I think it's easy to lose focus on that. And I think it's really important for us is to remain as integral as possible to that and the process and your voice.
Sure.
But I worry about the likes of you and I who seem to be diminishing in the world. And I ask that question because I want to know how we start propping it up, you know, and not just become the.
Isn't that okay? I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing your idea with another idea. When you say like there's less and less of us, in terms of like the integrity usually is number one, the vision is number one, where a lot of the other things, the business model and the audience and all these other things kind of come later. I thought that's what you're meaning by less of us.
I mean, yeah, no, I do. The less of us who put the integrity first, right, at the top of the list.
I gotta push back. I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of us. I think that's part of the reason I wanted to, have my own show is always to remind people there's still a lot of us out there. We're just not probably at the top.
Let me rephrase it then. There's less of us being exposed. You know, we're not fitting into the algorithmic society. Oh yeah, right?
and we never will.
The society is getting more influenced by essentially the wrong values and the wrong belief system, and
sure,
that's what I worry about. Underlying under all of this is how society is influenced. Right, how society is impacted by something as small as the art world.
I mean, well, that's the contemporary society we have, right? I've always been fascinated by amateur musicologists and historians that study this stuff, because art will always shape the culture, and it's very cyclical. Culture will always shape the arts, and I don't think I'm not worried that will ever stop. Yes, there will be the machine will probably only get bigger. Yes, feed the algo, whatever you got to do to get the clicks and all those things. I think, while we were discussing it, I think I have the closest thing to answering that better is like, if I had this like shining hit, let's say I wrote something and it was this big hit. I of course I would give serious consideration to writing a sequel to that. Be it an album or a book or a film or whatever like that, because but I think the difference between a lot of people like me and maybe some other types of people is that it would still have to feel right. Like, yes, I'm okay. I think there's nothing wrong with writing waves, and don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being successful and playing the game sometimes and fucking killing it. And you're the next big thing, A-lister, making all the money. Go crazy, do that. I just know for me personally, and a lot of other people like me, that if that sequel, if that next thing I did to help the hit or to become another hit based off that hit, wasn't still in line with my values and my vision and my integrity, I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, interesting. Well, as we wrap up then, I want to kind of finish with something along those lines, but if you can, tell us something a little bit about you, Novo Dé, the productions, that maybe we don't know about, that you're willing to share, and tell us why, we want to find you and buy your stuff.
A little personal tidbits. I love animals too, just like you. I come from a long line of people that love animals. I couldn't agree more with what you were saying earlier. I'm very familial. I love my family, the people that I consider family, but aren't always by blood, chosen family. I'm just one of those people that I think I would be nothing without a lot of them. And that's probably why I strive to protect them. And especially my lovely wife, TB Del Rio. I gave her a stage name, so because she doesn't want me to tell the world her real name either. So I gave her a stage name. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you how I got her stage name. So TB is part of her initials and her actual name. Del Rio is based off a character from the Netflix show Ozark. She got a brand new car one day, and it was during the pandemic. She was the only one we could afford at the time, and it looked like a drug dealer's car. It was like tinted windows and big old fucking rims, and I started calling her Del Rio because it was the same kind of character from the show. And I liked the flow of TV Del Rio. It kind of had a musical essence to it. And so because I talk about my family a lot on the show, and I never say their real names. Obviously, I say mom and dad for my mom and dad. I say TV Del Rio for my wife. I say Kobar Spiritual for my brother, who again, it's so easy to be like, I was inspired by this musician and this artist to do this, but like it really came down to my family. I think that's probably the deepest thing I'd probably be okay kind of telling people about in still a vague way is, man, I come from a lot of musical people, and my brother is incredible. My parents are incredible. Tell me how to play piano. I got my first lesson when I was 5 or 6 to learn like music theory. And again, I'm no virtuoso. Just because I'm into a lot of things doesn't mean I'm amazing at all of them. I learned Jingle Bells when I was like 5 or 6, but it was enough for me to be like, that's when I got the bug. I was a little kid. And as much as I went into I definitely wanted something practical. And I went into a career that was not a non-traditional art career before I really took this art career very seriously. And I would not have ever done that if it wasn't for my family. I kind of want to talk about that for a little bit, if we have 5 more minutes, is like the mythos of like the tortured soul. Like the artist has to be a tortured soul, has to give up everything, because like when I've had other interviews and they're like, they just assume I've been doing this like since high school or something like that. And I'm like, no, well, just like my characters, all of us, all humans are 3-dimensional. There's nothing wrong with falling in love with a career outside of the arts, And like I said, I think everyone is an artist. I deal with a lot of people. In my other careers, I deal with a lot of people, and there's such a skill to dealing with people. And that is such an art. And we forget that there are so many artists that just happen to be lawyers or plumbers or, electricians, and that do all these other things. But there is an art to that. There is creativity in that all the time. And to have to give that up, like, don't give up your day job. I kind of hate that, because I love my other career. I love this too. You can love both at the same time. I urge people to not lose touch with that either. Love what you love, and but yeah, just to round the question or the answer out is my family. Man, they're the best. I wouldn't be here without them.
Good for you. Yeah, that's always nice to hear. I totally agree with you. There's almost this rhetoric that there's no story without a struggle, and we all have struggles. You get to your age, my age, and you're gonna have gone through things that are ups and downs. So to be able to draw from that, and I think people forget where their inspirations come from, or the influence of the people around them every day through childhood, through adulthood. That's where we draw most of our stuff from, right? It's the nature and nurture. It's not just the nature. It's everything around us. So yeah, that's nice to hear. Novo, it's been an absolute honor to talk to you. Thanks for sharing everything. I know it's not something you normally do, putting your public face out there. So thank you so much for doing it for me.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you? Where can people find Novo Productions, and why should they?
We have a website. It's essentially our hub for everything. You can find links to our books, short stories. There's free stuff on there. The photography that we have, the audiobooks, Art of the Beholder. It's all at novodéproductions.com. Just www.novodéproductions.com. That's NOVODE productions.com. You can also follow us at _Novo_Day. And again, Day is DE, and at Novo Dé Media. I feel like I'm on my podcast. So like I rattle that off so much.
We're gonna link it all. We're gonna link it all. Yeah, it sounded very easy.
But yeah, that's where you can follow us. We're on all the things. Never usually musings, just to tell the world about the new thing that we're putting out. I will try to sell, why you should check it out. Thing is, will it be challenging? Absolutely. Is it family friendly? Absolutely not. But I think a lot of our pieces will change you. That's my hope for the better, is that you'll experience something and it'll make you think about something differently. It'll make you look at the world differently, and hopefully it'll maybe inspire you to do some of the things that you want to do as well. And so that is definitely our intention, is just to continue to strive for positive and progressive change.
I love it. What a great way to end. Thank you so much once again. And hopefully we get to do this either on your podcast again or back here on the Mood podcast. So
absolutely.
In the meantime, take care and thanks so much.
Thank you.